Hey, what's happening? Right now, you are listening to the Victory Loves Company podcast. Today is Monday, June 4th, 2018. I'm Conrad Agdarian, and my next guest is Jake Williams, a YouTube star in his own right, averaging well over 550,000 views a video. Since 2014, he has been exploring abandoned places in the United States and Canada, posting his videos and research on the YouTube channel Bright Sun Films. Jake makes all types of shows and videos about things that he finds interesting. Most of his shows featured abandoned places or properties, with past subjects including but not limited to Nickelodeon Studios, the McBarge, Circuit City, the Costa Concordia, with a special emphasis on Disney parks and attractions. With over 427,000 subscribers, all before his 19th birthday, joining me now via Skype from Toronto, Canada, is Jake Williams. Jake, welcome to the show, my man.
Hello, and thank you for having me.
Thanks for coming on. You're not going to do your signature intro for your shows?
Oh, yeah, sure. Do you want? What's up, guys?
He said it. All right, Jake, thanks so much for coming on, my man.
Yeah, no, seriously, thank you.
Why don't you tell us a little bit about yourself, separate from your show?
Separate from my show?
Tell me who you are, Jake.
Well, I mean, I grew up in a relatively small town in southern Ontario. I've always been very interested in film and things that the general mass of people aren't particularly allowed in. And that kind of just drove my interest in abandoned places and things that were never built. That stuff like that really interests me, and I have other interests and passions for theme parks and architecture and all sorts of stuff like that. I started when I was in high school making very terrible gaming videos, and that transitioned into more narrative-based videos that I just wanted to kind of bring to the internet. And that's all started with River Country, and then I grew with my other shows, most notably Abandoned, and I moved to Toronto, or Mississauga, I should say, a few years ago, and here we are today.
You started out in 2014, correct?
2014 was the beginning of my Abandoned show, yeah.
I've listened to pretty much, or I've seen pretty much all of your shows on YouTube. By contrast, from your first episode to now is like watching a business go from a garage startup to a national corporation. I mean, in the beginning stages, I mean, it sounds like you were recording in the bathroom. I mean, you were giggling. You weren't as polished, and now you just come across as this super professional guy with a really great narration voice. You should be really proud. I mean, you did a lot in such a short period of time and providing good information in the process. So my hat's off to you.
I really appreciate that. You're also, remember when you watch those videos all the way back, you're essentially watching a child grow up, and to the point where I'm at now. I was I think it was like 16 when I started this, and now I'm 20, and it's like you've watched, or you more have listened to the progression of my life, which is just so bizarre to think about.
So you could probably explain a little better than I can about what your shows are all about. We'll stick primarily to your Abandoned series, so let's start there.
Yeah, sure. So all the way back when I was first watching YouTube, and especially River Country related things, there was not much. There was one of the first videos was from Adam the Woo, who explored it, I think in 2009, and there was really no video online that kind of encapsulated all this information into one place. There was people standing in front of a camera just talking unedited for a little bit on the history of this place, but I figured that there would probably be more of a documentary style based video that should be made on this topic, and that's where that idea kind of deranged from, and I started with Discovery Island, which is the adjacent abandoned property in Walt Disney World, and the series just grew from there with other topics and projects and anything else that I find of interest.
Is that what made you start the series?
Oh yeah, definitely.
Was there something an instance or an occurrence that kind of went off in your head like a light bulb that said, you know what, this is what I want to do?
Well, for a while, I was making videos through 2012 and 2013, and it really wasn't working out the way I wanted it to. I was very I lost a lot of passion towards it, and towards the I don't know, I think it was like mid or late 2014, I all of a sudden got a bunch of views on that Discovery Island video, and by a bunch of views, I mean like 2,000 or 3,000 people watched it, and to me that was like incredible. That was an incredible amount of people who watched that video. So that really inspired me to do the next one, which I think was the Treasure Island Hotel in Daytona Beach. And ever since, I've been really interested in not only producing content that I love to watch, but the drive of a bunch of people enjoying that too is just such a really great thing, and that just keeps me going with the series, really.
What factors play a key role in deciding what you decide to research next?
It all comes down to whether or not I find it interesting, because each topic takes a very long time to research. And if it's something that I don't particularly find interesting or fascinating to me, and I have to research this thing for like 20 or 30 hours, then it just isn't fun for me.
You lose your momentum because you're not interested?
Exactly. So any topic I ever cover is going to be something that I'm interested about.
Well, you put not very heavy, but you put an emphasis on Disney and Disney parks. I'm assuming that you're a Disney park goer?
Yeah, I definitely love my Disney park history. I've been going for quite a while throughout my life, and more recently I've a deep interest in theme park history, and Walt Disney World history is even more particularly interesting. So I based a lot of my videos around that, obviously because I'm interested about it, and I know other people are too. So that's kind of where it comes from.
Well, there's no shortage of Disney fans. I mean, I'm one, my girl's one. I mean, we just came back from a trip only a couple of weeks ago. Yeah, we're even planning on doing a probably like a 3 or 4 podcast show on how to properly plan for one, because it's just so intricate. There's so many moving parts, as you know, that are associated with it. So if I can get that information out to people that, you know, want to go and want to make the best of their times in the park, and I can provide that information based off of experience, then that's what I want to do. You know what I mean?
Yeah, for sure.
What's your favorite park, if you had to pick one?
I have a very unpopular opinion. Well, I had a very unpopular opinion. I think that's changed now, but my favorite park for a while has been Animal Kingdom. I adore that park. The theming in there is just, it's fantastic.
Did you go on the new Avatar ride yet?
Yeah, I've been on both. Actually, 2 different trips I had to go on both because the waits for them have been just enormous.
Like 200 minutes long.
Yeah, more than that. It's Pandora, though, the new section of Animal Kingdom, which is called Pandora, it is breathtaking. For the longest time, I couldn't wait. Everyone said, "Oh, who cares about Avatar?" But it's not even really about the film. It's about that land, and just the way it comes together is just truly unimaginable.
When we were there, we had an awesome time in the Avatar land, and we had the opportunity of riding the Banshee, or the Flight of Passage, I'm sorry, as it was called, and it was super cool. It was like Soarin', but only on steroids.
Yeah.
You know what I'm talking about? What I didn't like about it personally was like the fluff in the beginning of it. Like the ride itself was only like 6 minutes long, but like the intro to get you all psyched up was like 20 minutes long. I get it. Haha, we're all contaminated. All right, let's go on the ride already, you know?
Yeah, the pre-show it's very bizarre on how they formatted it. And also the acting in it is very off-putting.
Right, I agree.
But I think that's all done just for capacity and moving a large amount of people at a time.
While we were doing that, they probably went through about 2 or even 3 different rides just while we were kind of being quote-unquote entertained. Because if I recall, there were like 4 doors that you can enter from. The ones that we went through, they only had it was 9 and a 9. So I highly doubt that a ride that popular can only really hold 18 people at once. I would imagine it would be 18 times 4. I suck at math, so whatever that comes out to be. In my opinion, they kind of, I don't want to say oversold it, but it was just too much fluff. There was too much padding. But that's just me from one Disney fan to another. Anyway, let's get this back on the rails again. In some of the places, Jake, that you investigate, have you ever been kicked out or chased out due to like recording or any kind of production that you were doing on site?
Well, we're always extremely respectful with the place we're in, and we never go to vandalize or anything like that. And I always encourage anyone that does visit these places never to destroy or vandalize or do harmful things to the place you're at. I actually don't think we've ever had an altercation with anyone before. We've usually been in and out and nobody really cares. So we've been rather fortunate.
Have you ever gotten freaked out by some of the places that you have done?
I mean, every place is terrifying, but yeah, we've had instances where we believe that someone else was in the building, and we were in Detroit one night on July 4th. It's actually a video on the channel, and a bunch of scrappers pulled their truck right up to the school that we were in, abandoned high school. I think it was at 1 or 2 a.m. in the morning, and there's a bunch of men going in the building and tearing out floors and ceilings and all that while we were still inside the building. So that was quite frightening.
Oh, wow. Were you by yourself, or were you working with somebody?
No, we were with Dan Bell and my producer, Brendan.
Okay. What places do you want to visit that you've yet to travel to?
Oh, man. There's a bunch. I would love to see Six Flags New Orleans. That's one of the top ones. Can't really think of any others in the States, but I definitely want to go to Alabama sometime in the future and see some of those some of those abandoned places. And there's lots to see, anything that I find interesting on the side of the road, I definitely gotta stop and check out.
Anything in particular you have mapped out?
Not really. There's a bunch of abandoned malls and abandoned stores and all that, and in Florida and Alabama that I want to check out. So hopefully over the summer. I'm not too sure.
Alabama in the summer, coming from Toronto, you're going to be prepared for the dramatic.
It's going to be
the weather
hot.
contrast.
Yeah.
Jake, what do you find to be the most interesting aspect about your shows?
I think I present a lot of the information in a unique style. There's a lot of people who do this now, especially on Disney. Defunctland's a really great channel, and Yesterworld does a really great job too. I think for me, I cover a lot of the topics that I find interesting, and I think my personality and among other styles of storytelling and timeline storytelling with my particular shows, I think they have a level of uniqueness that I think others don't. So I think that's what continues to drive success for BSF.
What has been the most interesting thing that you've discovered that you have not published that hasn't made it to your shows?
Oh, that's a great question. Usually whenever I find something great, it goes right on YouTube. I can't think of anything in particular that I have stored away that I haven't put out yet.
Okay, fair enough. Jake, do you have a goal in mind for the upcoming years? Like, as in, do you eventually plan on creating and producing content for a large company? Do you kind of want to stick doing your thing on YouTube right now?
Well, I'm always open to everything. I think what I have going right now is very successful, and it's something I genuinely love doing, and it has the added benefit of me earning a sustainable income. So I'm very content with where I am right now, and I intend to continue to do that in the future. But I always have new shows and new locations and brand new ideas that I always want to try out for the channel. So there's never going to be an end to new and unique content from me.
Well, you're taking on advertisers now, correct?
Yes.
At what point did a sponsor approach you and say, hey, like, you know, we want to jump in on this. Are you interested?
At what point did I reach that? I think I got my first sponsorship by audible.com in 2016.
Okay.
And that I think that was for the Journey into Your Imagination video, I believe. So it was quite a while ago, and I've spaced them out pretty inconsistently since then. But God, I have no idea how many subscribers I had back then. I'd say my educated guess would be around 150,000, maybe.
Yeah, that seems to be pretty standard for advertisers that approach people. They
Yeah,
kind
I
of
think
just,
they're a lot more lenient nowadays. I think advertisers grab on to channels that don't have a huge audience, but they just pay them less. So
because they can get them on the cheap, right?
that's what I'm thinking. I don't personally know this as a fact. That's what I'm just assuming.
Have you ever turned down sponsorships? Like you didn't think that the company would be a good fit for your shows?
Usually I try and not sponsor anything that's a mobile game or something like that. I find that to be rather cheap,
Tacky.
unless
Yeah.
it's a little tacky, unless it's done well, which I know a few creators can do. I have faith in a few people, but whenever I see a mobile game like Clash of Con or whatever on get this and get 300 gems, it's like, geez. So I that's what I try to steer away from. I always try and advertise brands and companies and sites that I genuinely use and I find to be of use to me and my audience.
Because you actually can sell it. You can speak from personal experiences and truly
Exactly.
believe in the product.
Yeah.
I got you. So I would imagine that if a tampon company approached you, you would probably maybe say no.
Yeah, probably not.
You never know. All right, so we talked about your series Abandoned. Now you have other, I want to call them like sister channels. One called Cancelled, and one
Right.
called Bankrupt.
Right.
Why don't you tell us a little bit about that?
Well, canceled and bankrupt are God, they're kind of like you said, sisters to abandoned. They're their own unique entity, but they cover similar topics, just topics that work a little better for that type of genre. So, for instance, canceled it covers TV shows and movies and other things I find interesting in that in that topic range. And then there's Bankrupt, which is a very interesting new series that just premiered a few months ago, with the first episode being Pan Am.
That's your newest one, correct?
That's the newest and currently only one.
Okay.
But yeah, Pan Am was such a very interesting and weird odyssey to go into, and I got the very unique privilege to talk to a former Pan Am purser, which is like the head flight attendant. I believe his name was Steve Prisky. He wrote the book Flying in the Pool, I believe, in an interview on that video, and it's just such a cool and educational experience for me, and I think that episode just turned out fantastic.
It's amazing to see how air travel has changed over the years, especially in the days of like TWA and Pan Am.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, the MetLife building that's on Park Avenue in Manhattan used to be, as you know, the Pan Am building. I think you mentioned that in one of the shows.
I never knew that. Yeah.
Yeah. What they used to do, especially for the first classers, is they would take them from the airport and literally airlift them by helicopter to the top of this roof where they would
Right.
just serve them like drinks and whatnot because they were high rollers. And I can't think of any service now that would offer that unless you're like a multi-millionaire status. And it's just weird that was the standard back then. And it wasn't
Yeah.
even really that far long ago. I mean, men dressed up in suits to travel.
No.
I mean, how elegant is that?
I know. Vox did a fantastic piece on the helicopter craze in New York City, especially with the Pan Am building. And that Pan Am headquarters, which is now the MetLife building in downtown Manhattan, it's like it just perfectly encapsulates like the era of business in New York City. It's just all Art Deco inside, and it's 1970s attire. It encapsulates everything that was New York in the 1970s.
It was the golden age of flying.
Exactly.
Yeah. Well, it's cool. I definitely look forward to more Bankrupt stuff because, as a businessman myself, I find it super interesting to see these companies kind of come and go. I mean, even to some extent, even in your Abandoned series, when you talk about Bradley's and Circuit City,
Right.
which were powerhouses around here, especially in New Jersey, where there's retail everywhere. And I can personally speak for those because I've been inside both. I'm actually waiting for you to do one on Toys R Us.
Toys R Us is coming.
Oh,
Everyone
gee.
wants me to do Toys R Us. That's definitely coming.
Yeah, you got that a lot?
I'm assuming the next abandoned video that I do sometime in June or July will be of Toys R Us.
Nice. Well, you heard it here first. So, Jake, you live in Toronto, is that correct?
Yeah, I just live outside of Toronto in a city called Mississauga.
Do you feel that you have, given the level of success and fame that you have off of the shows that you do on YouTube, do you feel that you have notoriety where you are? Like, do people recognize you?
No, not in Toronto. The only time I've ever been recognized was in Florida. Yeah, I think I've been recognized once in not abandoned, but a closing Sears Canada store, and every other time I've ever been recognized was either in Walt Disney World or somewhere in Florida. So yeah, I'm not a name that's known here in Toronto.
Okay. Well, I mentioned to you off the podcast back in September. Was it the first week in September, second week in September of last year, 2017, is when Hurricane Irma rampaged its way through Central Florida, and you just so happened to be there when that happened, correct?
Yeah.
And you did an episode on it, and afterwards, when my girl showed it to me, she goes, "Thank God we didn't go." The flip side to that coin is, "Oh my God, Conrad, if we would have went, we would have met Jake." I'm like, really?
Yeah, I think the safe option there was not to go to Walt Disney World during the rampaging of Irma.
The travel agency that I was working with when we were because unfortunately we had to cancel it, and we did so at the last minute, and I still kind of stand by that was the right decision to do, decide the financial obligation that we were in at the time. But based off of the video, it kind of gave me peace of mind, like, oof, like, thank God we didn't go. Was it really that? I know the first night was bad, but you said, I believe in the show itself, I'm probably paraphrasing at this point, but by the second day, everything was kind of calm and the cast members were cleaning everything up. I
think, while I filmed Irma at its worst, it was slightly worse than it shows on video, especially that walk in between Bay Lake Tower and Contemporary Resort.
Oh yeah. Yeah.
It wasn't bad. To be fair, I don't vacation in Walt Disney World the same way other people vacation, so I can't be a proper gauge of whether or not people should have went or not. But my personal experience, it was not as bad as I thought it was going to be. Everyone talking about Hurricane Irma was hyping this thing up to be like the end of the world, and that's what I was expecting. So that's why the whole reason I went to Contemporary was because I was too scared to stay at the Homewood Suites because I didn't want to be without power. And the day of the hurricane striking, I booked 2 nights at Disney's Contemporary Resort and stayed in the Garden Wing throughout the storm. But it was only the curfew, I believe, was at 8:00 that day, and then Hurricane Irma came through at around 11 or 12.
Close to midnight.
Lasted through I think 2 or 3 a.m. and then after that it was all gone.
Nobody really knew. It was definitely hyped up on all media outlets, but nobody really knew where it was going to land. I know the Keys really got messed up, but from that point on,
oh my God,
yeah, was it going to go to the right? Was it going to go to the left? Everybody's making all these predictions.
So many the Hurricane Irma, if you look at all the news outlets talking about this from the beginning of it as a tropical storm all the way up to it going through South Carolina, it's like no one could figure out where this thing was going. For the general consensus for a solid week was, it's not going to hit Florida. It's going to coast right off of Miami and then go out into the Atlantic. But then a week later, it's like, yes, we know Tampa is going to have the worst of it. Please leave Tampa if you're in there. And then 15 hours before Hurricane Irma makes landfall in Florida, it decides to go straight through Central Florida.
Yeah, right down the center. Yeah.
How did this happen?
I know. That was the one thing they kind of really didn't predict. They were predicting it was going to hug either the east coast of Florida or the west coast. and then go, as you said, go back out to either to the Atlantic or into the Gulf. Anyway, the point I was trying to orchestrate was we were set to arrive, I think, like 2 days before it was actually supposed to hit. So there was always that uncertainty and that anxiety of like, how bad is this really going to be? Now, I'm as big as Disney fan as anybody else, but to spend that amount of money and then constantly worry, is this going to be bad? Am I going to be able to get a flight home? And, is this really a danger? To me, it wasn't worth it. So that's why I kind of stand by my final decision. Yeah. But, you were there and I wasn't.
I have a much more devious mindset because through the whole thing, I was like, ooh, this is going to be good. I can't wait.
You get some great content out of that.
It made for a good video, though.
Yeah, it was. I mean, it did look intense. I'm just glad that really nobody got hurt.
No, I don't want to undermine the true damage it was, because when Hurricane Irma was all the way out in the Western Antilles and the Keys and St. Thomas, St. Martin, it destroyed those islands, and lives were definitely lost because the storm was at the time was a Category 5. So
yeah, right before landfall, it was still a 5. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it was a deadly hurricane. And in the end of my video, I encourage people to donate to multiple outlets that would help these islands.
Relief funds and whatnot. Yeah,
I still do encourage you to do that if you have some money sparing around, everyone.
Yeah, I agree. It's definitely for a noble cause. All right, Jay, kind of rounding the corner here. Do you have any advice for someone who's starting out in the YouTube world, given your level of success at such a young age?
Starting out in YouTube now is like it's very hard.
It's super competitive.
I think, yeah, it is. It's very competitive. Everything's saturated. I think a good mindset to go into is not to be based monetarily around your success. I think if you go in wanting to make money, it's going to be hard for you to gain an audience that respects you. I think it's really hard to say because everyone wants to do different things. If you want to do gaming, then it's like next to impossible to be known. But it's like if you have an original idea, if you want to do sketches or something like that, it's just, I think it all differs. I think for content like mine, if you do it right and you do it well and you do it respectful, and by respectful I mean don't spam your Patreon everywhere and tell everyone to subscribe at the first thing and have like goals. I think if you do it in a really elegant and professional and respectable way, I think that's a good way to gauge, or not gauge, but grow an audience that trusts you and respects you. That's the way I would do it if I had to start all over again.
No, that makes sense. What's the saying in business? It's like if you take care of your customers, the money will follow, or something along those lines.
Yep, exactly.
Yeah, I agree. If you kind of, for lack of a better term, whore yourself out right from the get-go, people are going to kind of see that you're so money-driven and your content and your information comes secondary. But if you flip that, people will follow you. And I think that's kind of the path that you chose. You put your content first. Money was just kind of like a byproduct of your hard work.
Well, it's also, I've never clickbaited or anything like that, and I think that gets you a sense of respect among your community. And I think if
trust too, that's a big one.
Oh, definitely trust. If you go into a certain community on YouTube and start clickbaiting everything and being a real bad person about it,
you can say bad words here, Jake. You're in a safe zone.
If you're gonna be a real bastard about it, then no one's gonna like you.
No, I agree. You get a reputation of being slimy.
Yeah, no, exactly.
All right. Well, again, I truly appreciate your time, Jake.
You've covered a lot of things. Please
keep up the good work. We're all looking forward to your next show. I'm a subscriber. Your videos are like a woman's dress. They're long enough to cover the topic, but they're short enough to keep it interesting.
What an analogy.
Yeah, man, you're crushing it.
No, I really appreciate it.
All right, well, Jake, again, thank you so much for coming on the show.
Yeah, thank you so much for having me.
All right. And I think that should do it for this episode of Victory Loves Company. Be sure to check out Jake's YouTube channel, Bright Sun Films, or you can type in Abandon and you'll see his flagship channel there for some very interesting content. I highly recommend you take a look at it. You've been listening to the Victory Loves Company podcast. I'm Conrad Agdarian. Please check us out on our social media handles at VLC Podcast. And as always, if you have any questions or suggestions for upcoming shows, please email us at thevictorypodcast@gmail.com. For now, I will talk to you on Monday.